Well, today is President Joe Biden's first full day as commander-in-chief after being sworn in yesterday, and he plans to hit the ground running, already done so. Several big priorities at the top of his list. Joining me now live to talk about all that is Laura Wilson, Associate Professor of Political Science at UIndy. First off, good morning to you, as usual.
Morning to you.
All right, well, we basically elected a Democrat. Indiana, for the most part, is a little more on the conservative side, although we did elect President Obama back in 2008. What are you seeing moving forward in terms of, I guess, as he said, trying to bring unity to the country?
Well, absolutely. That was the theme of President Biden's inauguration. But he talked about how sometimes it can be joked around as a foolish fantasy. And this is a state that went 17% for Donald Trump in 2020. We went 19% in 2016. So very red. I think there are a lot of opportunities in the recent executive orders, the motions, and the legislative pushes that Biden is putting forward to showcase, not just talk about unity, but actually showcase it. And some of these opportunities that will certainly impact us here in Indiana, but have the ability to bring us together as a country and not just further this divide, as he spoke a lot about in the inauguration, but we'll be able to see play out in the coming months ahead.
All right, let's talk about the executive orders he's already signed into action just yesterday. 17 of those. Anything specific that stood out to you?
Well, a lot of this was undoing some of the work of his predecessor, President Trump. President Biden was looking at a range of issues, and he has a wide policy agenda. You know, he's interested in climate control and environment. He's interested in COVID and rejoining, of course, the World Health Organization. There's interest in terms of education, getting children back to school, but also the economy. So when you look at that large group, and of course, everything that he's going to be pushing through today, it really is a smattering of all of his policy issues, taking one big step forward in each of those, and then he'll pursue those out further later.
Now, I know he's talking about 10 more today, including, face masks when wearing airplanes or flying on airplanes. You don't wear an airplane. And also using the Defense Production Act, which a lot of people were hoping would have been done before now. And that affects a lot of businesses, could be, here in Indy, because a lot of them are connected to pharma.
They are. I mean, I think of Roche Diagnostics and Lilly. What an incredible economic opportunity for us here in central Indiana. And of course, we'll see what it is he says, what it is he does, and then how it's implemented. But one great example of how the policy could have an impact right here at home.
All right, former VP Mike Pence back home in Indiana, but the tag to that line is "for now." What do you think happens?
Well, he's relatively young as far as politicians go, and I think he has a future ahead of him. He might want to pursue it in terms of private industry. He could stay in public service. I can't pretend to understand his motivations or intentions, but I do think he has something there if he wants to return to Washington or do something here in Indiana. He has time, and I think he has a lot of political capital still.
All right, Associate Professor of Science at UIndy, long title, Laura Wilson. Thanks for being here. We do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.